The stagecoach lurched to a halt outside the ranch house, and Victoria Sawyer clutched her carpetbag tighter, steeling herself for whatever orders awaited her inside. But when the tall cowboy who met her at the door asked softly, "Tell me what you dream about," instead of barking commands, she forgot every rehearsed response she had prepared during the 3-day journey from San Antonio. It was late August in 1878, and the Texas sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty landscape surrounding the Double S Ranch just outside Brownsville, Texas. Victoria had traveled from her uncle's house in San Antonio with a single trunk and her carpetbag, her heart heavy with the knowledge that she was essentially being sold into service to pay off family debts. Her uncle had assured her the arrangement was perfectly respectable. She would serve as housekeeper and cook for a bachelor rancher who needed help managing his household. She had expected a gruff, weathered old man who would work her to the bone and barely speak except to criticize her efforts. Instead, Lucas Sterling stood before her, removing his dusty hat to reveal sandy brown hair and eyes the color of Texas bluebonnets. He could not have been more than 28, perhaps 30 at most, and the gentle curiosity in his expression threw her completely off balance. "I beg your pardon," Victoria managed, adjusting the bonnet that had gone askew during the rough ride. Lucas stepped down from the porch, his movements easy and unhurried despite the heat. "Your uncle's letter said you were coming to help run the household, but it read like a business contract." "I do not run my home that way, Miss Sawyer. Before we discuss duties or expectations, I would like to know who you are. So I am asking, what do you dream about?" Victoria stared at him, genuinely bewildered. In her 22 years, no one had ever asked her such a question. Her parents had died of fever when she was 16, and since then, she had moved between relatives' homes, always the poor relation, always expected to earn her keep through endless chores. Dreams were a luxury she had learned to pack away. "I do not understand what you mean, Mr. Sterling," she said carefully, defaulting to the formal caution that had kept her safe in uncertain situations. "Dreams, Miss Sawyer. Hopes. The things that make your heart feel bigger when you think about them." He gestured toward the house, a well-built structure of wood and stone that showed signs of careful maintenance. "Come inside out of this heat, and we can talk properly." The interior of the house surprised her. She had expected bachelor squalor, but the main room was clean and orderly, if sparsely furnished. A large stone fireplace dominated one wall, and windows on the eastern side let in good light. The furniture was simple, but well made: a sturdy table with 6 chairs, a comfortable-looking settee, and shelves lined with more books than she would have expected. Lucas set her carpetbag down and moved to the kitchen area, returning with 2 glasses of cool water from what must have been a well-insulated ice box. He handed her one, and she drank gratefully. "Your uncle told me you were 22, unmarried, and needed a position," Lucas said, settling into one of the chairs at the table and gesturing for her to sit as well. "He made it sound like I would be doing him a favor by taking you on, but I do not collect people out of charity, Miss Sawyer. I want to know if you will be happy here." "Happy?" The word felt strange in her mouth. "Mr. Sterling, I came here to work. I assumed you needed someone to cook, clean, mend clothes, and manage your household. My happiness does not factor into the arrangement. It does for me." He leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I have had hired help before, Miss Sawyer. Miserable people do miserable work, and more importantly, life is too short to make people miserable. So before we discuss anything else, I want to know what would make you happy. What do you dream about?" Victoria set down her glass, her hands trembling slightly. This conversation was so far from what she had anticipated that she felt unmoored, adrift in unfamiliar territory. Part of her suspected a trick, some kind of test where any answer she gave would be wrong. But something in Lucas Sterling's steady gaze suggested genuine interest, not manipulation. "I used to dream about having a garden," she said finally, the words coming slowly. "A real garden, not just a few herbs in pots, vegetables and flowers both, all mixed together. My mother had one like that when I was small, before she got sick. I remember how the tomatoes would get so ripe they would split, and there were always bees humming around the lavender." Lucas smiled, and it transformed his sun-weathered face. "There is good land behind the house, gets morning sun and afternoon shade from those cottonwoods. Been thinking it would make a fine garden spot, but I do not have the knowledge or the time to do it justice. You think you could make something grow there?" "I believe so, yes." Victoria felt a small spark of something she had almost forgotten: hope. "But surely you did not bring me all the way from San Antonio just to plant vegetables." "No, though that would be reason enough if it made you happy." Lucas stood and moved to the window, looking out over his land. "I will be honest with you, Miss Sawyer. I do need help running this household. I can cook beans and bacon well enough to keep from starving, but beyond that, my skills are lacking. The house gets dusty faster than I can clean it. My clothes need proper mending, and I could use someone who knows how to manage supplies and make this place feel like a home instead of just a building I sleep in. But more than that, I could use the company." He turned back to face her, and she saw loneliness in his expression. "I have been working this ranch alone for 3 years now, since my brother headed to California to try his luck in business there. I have hired hands who come for the seasonal work, but most of them stay in the bunkhouse and keep to themselves. I wanted someone who would make this house feel alive again. Your uncle's letter suggested you might be that person, but I will not have you here if you will be miserable. I have enough money to pay you a fair wage, and if after a month you want to leave, I will personally ensure you get to wherever you want to go, with enough funds to start fresh." Victoria absorbed this information, trying to reconcile it with her expectations. "You are offering me employment with the option to leave. I am offering you a place to live and work that I hope you will choose to make your home, but I will not trap anyone here against their will. What do you say, Miss Sawyer? Will you give it a month and see how it feels?" She thought about the cramped room she had occupied in her uncle's house, where she had been made to feel like a burden every single day. She thought about the endless criticism, the way every meal she cooked or garment she mended was picked apart for flaws. She looked at Lucas Sterling with his earnest questions and his talk of dreams, and decided that even if this turned out to be a mistake, it could hardly be worse than what she had left behind. "Yes, Mr. Sterling, I will stay for a month and see how things go." "Lucas," he corrected gently. "If we are going to share a home, even just as employer and employee, we should use given names. May I call you Victoria?" "You may." She felt her cheeks warm slightly. "Though most people call me Vera. Which do you prefer?" Another question no one had ever asked her. "Victoria," she said after a moment. "Vera always sounded like someone's spinster aunt to me." Lucas laughed, a warm sound that seemed to fill the room. "Victoria it is, then. Now let me show you the rest of the house, and then we should talk about practical matters like wages and schedules." The house tour revealed 3 bedrooms, a larger one that Lucas occupied, a smaller one that had belonged to his brother, and a third that he had already prepared for her. It held a comfortable bed with a wedding ring quilt, a dresser, a washstand with a flowered pitcher and basin, and a window that looked east toward the morning sun. Her trunk had already been brought up from the stagecoach, and someone had placed a small vase of wildflowers on the dresser. "Did you pick those?" Victoria asked, touching one of the blue petals gently. "I did. Thought you might like some color after the long journey." Lucas stood in the doorway, not entering her private space. "The room is yours to arrange however you like. There are extra linens in the chest at the foot of the bed, and if you need anything else, just let me know." They discussed wages next, and Victoria was surprised to find Lucas offering more than she had expected, along with room and board and Sundays off. He explained the basic household needs, cooking for the two of them, plus occasional meals for hired hands during busy seasons, general cleaning and laundry, and managing the household supplies, which meant periodic trips to Brownsville for shopping. "I usually go into town every 2 weeks for supplies and to conduct business," Lucas said. "You would be welcome to come along, or if you prefer, you can give me a list and I will purchase what you need." "I would like to come sometimes, if that is acceptable. I should choose my own cooking supplies and household goods." "Of course. We can go this Saturday if you are settled in enough by then. That gives you 4 days to see what we need." He paused, then added, "I should tell you that my ranch hand, Miguel Fuentes, lives in the bunkhouse about a 1/4 mile from here. He has been with me for 2 years and is completely trustworthy. He usually takes his meals there, but occasionally he eats at the house. I wanted you to know so you would not be startled if you see him around." Victoria appreciated the warning. She was accustomed to being nervous around unfamiliar men, a caution born of too many experiences with relatives' friends who thought a poor relation was fair game for unwanted attention. "Thank you for telling me. Miguel is married, though his wife is still in Mexico caring for her sick mother. He is hoping to bring her here by next spring. He is a good man, and he knows I expect all women to be treated with complete respect on my land." Lucas's tone suggested he had strong feelings on the subject. As the afternoon wore into evening, Victoria prepared her first meal in the Sterling household. The kitchen was better equipped than she had dared hope, with good cast iron cookware, sharp knives, and a well-maintained stove. The pantry held basic supplies: flour, cornmeal, beans, bacon, coffee, and some preserved vegetables. It was not much to work with, but she managed to make a decent supper of cornbread, beans flavored with bacon and onions, and fried potatoes. Lucas ate with obvious appreciation, complimenting everything and asking questions about how she had prepared the food. His genuine interest was still novel to Victoria, and she found herself relaxing incrementally, though she remained cautious. Years of experience had taught her that people often showed their best behavior initially, only to reveal their true nature later. After supper, Lucas insisted on helping her wash the dishes, which flustered her considerably. "That is my work, Mr. Sterling Lucas," she corrected herself. "You should not be doing household chores." "I live here too, Victoria. I am perfectly capable of drying dishes while you wash them. Besides, it gives us time to talk, and I would like to get to know you better." So they stood side by side at the kitchen basin, Victoria washing while Lucas dried, and he asked her more questions. He wanted to know about her childhood, her parents, what books she liked to read, whether she preferred coffee or tea, what kind of music she enjoyed. The questions were never invasive or inappropriate, but they demonstrated a genuine curiosity about who she was as a person. In turn, Victoria gathered courage to ask him questions as well. She learned that Lucas was 29, that he had inherited the ranch from his father 5 years ago, and that he had built it up from a struggling operation to a moderately successful cattle ranch. His brother had never loved ranching and had left as soon as he was able, but they remained on good terms and exchanged letters regularly. Lucas had been engaged once, 3 years ago, but his fiancée had broken it off when she realized how isolated ranch life could be. She wanted to live in town, near shops and society, Lucas explained without apparent bitterness. "I could not fault her for it, This life is not for everyone. It can be lonely, especially for women. Men have their work and can lose themselves in it, but women need companionship and community in a way we often do not. Is that why you wanted household help? So you would have company? Victoria asked, partly. But also because I hope to marry eventually, and I want to make sure this house feels like a home before I bring a wife here. I figure if I can learn to run a proper household with help, I will be better prepared for marriage. He set down the last dried plate. Does that sound strange? It sounds thoughtful, Victoria said honestly. Most men do not consider such things. That first evening set the pattern for the days that followed. Victoria rose early to prepare breakfast, then spent her mornings cleaning and doing laundry. The house had been maintained well enough that it did not require deep cleaning, just regular upkeep. Afternoons she spent mending clothes, preparing supper, and beginning to plan her garden. Lucas worked from dawn until dusk, riding out to check on his cattle, mending fences, and doing the countless tasks required to keep a ranch running. But he always returned for the midday meal and for supper, and he always lingered to talk with Victoria while they cleaned up together. He continued to ask her questions, drawing out details about her life that she had never shared with anyone. She told him about the books she had loved as a child, the poems she had memorized, the way she had once dreamed of becoming a teacher before her parents died, and made such aspirations impossible. She described the gardens her mother had kept, the way different plants could be combined to help each other grow, the satisfaction of harvesting something she had grown with her own hands. In return, Lucas shared his dreams too. He talked about wanting to expand his herd, about techniques he had read about for improving grazing land, about his hope that Brownsville would continue to grow and bring more opportunities to the region. He described his childhood, the way his father had taught him everything about ranching, the adventures he and his brother had shared before their interests diverged. On Thursday afternoon, Lucas found Victoria behind the house, pacing out dimensions in the area he had mentioned for her garden. He had brought rough stakes and helped her mark the corners, then asked detailed questions about what she planned to grow. "I was thinking about building you a proper fence for it," he said, studying the marked area. "Keep the rabbits and deer out. Would that help?" "It would help immensely, but that seems like a lot of work just for a garden. Fresh vegetables all year. That is worth the work," he grinned at her. "Besides, I have been meaning to learn more about gardening. Maybe you could teach me while we build it together." They spent the next 2 hours working side by side, Lucas cutting and setting posts while Victoria began clearing the ground of rocks and weeds. It was hot, hard work, but Victoria found herself enjoying it. Lucas kept up a steady stream of conversation, asking her advice on post placement and sharing stories about various mishaps he had experienced while learning to ranch. His self-deprecating humor surprised her. Men in her experience rarely admitted to mistakes, let alone laughed about them. "The first time I tried to rope a calf by myself, I managed to rope my own horse's back legs instead," he told her, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Went down in a tangle, and the calf just stood there watching like I was the day's entertainment." Victoria laughed, the sound surprising her. She could not remember the last time she had genuinely laughed. "Were you hurt?" "Only my pride. Miguel saw the whole thing and he still brings it up whenever he thinks I am getting too full of myself." Lucas looked at her, his expression softening. "You should laugh more, Victoria. It suits you." She felt her cheeks warm and turned her attention back to clearing rocks, unsure how to respond to such a personal observation. Saturday morning arrived with clear skies, and Lucas brought the wagon around for the trip into Brownsville. Victoria had prepared a detailed list of supplies needed for the household. and she wore her best dress, a serviceable blue cotton that was neat and modest even if it was not fashionable. Lucas had also dressed carefully in clean trousers and a pressed shirt, and Victoria realized this trip to town was something of an event for both of them. The road to Brownsville took them through increasingly populated territory. They passed other ranches and farms, and Lucas pointed out landmarks and neighbors' properties, sharing details about the families who lived there. His easy familiarity with the area contrasted sharply with Victoria's sense of newness, but his narration helped her begin to build a mental map of her new home region. Brownsville itself was larger than Victoria had expected, a bustling town on the Rio Grande with a mix of Anglo and Mexican influences evident in the architecture and the people on the streets. Lucas drove the wagon to the main mercantile, helping Victoria down with a steadying hand on her elbow. Inside, the proprietor greeted Lucas warmly. "Mr. Sterling, good to see you. And who is this lovely lady?" "This is Miss Victoria Sawyer, my new housekeeper. Victoria, this is Harold Patterson, who runs the best mercantile in 3 counties. Harold beamed at the compliment. "Welcome to Brownsville, Miss Sawyer. If there is anything you need that I do not have in stock, you just let me know and I will order it for you." Victoria presented her list, and Harold began gathering items while she browsed the store, examining the available goods with the practiced eye of someone who had managed households on tight budgets. Lucas trailed after her, carrying her selections and offering opinions when asked. "These eggs are fresh," she asked Harold, examining a basket. "Brought in this morning, Miss Sawyer. Mrs. Chen's chickens are the best layers in town." They were loading their purchases into the wagon when a woman's voice called out, "Lucas Sterling, is that really you?" Victoria turned to see an elegant woman in a fashionable green dress approaching, a parasol shading her perfect complexion. She was perhaps 25, beautiful in a way that made Victoria suddenly aware of her own plain appearance. Lucas's expression remained polite but distant. "Hello, Caroline. How have you been?" "Quite well, thank you. Father's store is expanding and I have been helping manage it." Caroline's eyes flickered to Victoria with undisguised curiosity. "Are you going to introduce me to your companion, Miss Victoria Sawyer? This is Miss Caroline Porter." "Victoria is my housekeeper. Caroline and I were acquainted some years ago." Caroline's smile took on a sharp edge. "Acquainted is a modest description, Lucas. We were engaged, as I am sure you remember." "I remember you decided you preferred town life," Lucas said evenly. "I hope you have found happiness here." "Oh, I have been quite content, though I admit I was surprised to hear you had taken on a housekeeper. I thought you preferred solitude." Caroline's tone suggested something unpleasant beneath the polite words. Victoria felt her spine stiffen. She recognized this type of woman, the kind who used social niceties as weapons, who could make you feel small while maintaining plausible deniability about any insult. Before she could formulate a response, Lucas spoke. "I prefer good company to no company, and solitude to bad company. Victoria has been an excellent addition to my household. Now, if you will excuse us, we have more shopping to do." He placed a hand on the small of Victoria's back, gently guiding her away from Caroline. Victoria could feel the other woman's eyes boring into her back as they walked down the street. "I apologize for that," Lucas said once they were out of earshot. "Caroline has a talent for making people uncomfortable." "Is that why your engagement ended?" Victoria asked, then immediately regretted the forward question. "Forgive me, that was impertinent." "Not at all, and partly yes. She wanted me to give up the ranch and move into town to help run her father's store. When I refused, she made it clear that she considered ranch life beneath her dignity." He paused outside a small shop. "I thought we might stop here." They have fabric and sewing supplies, and I thought you might want to see if there is anything you need." Inside the shop, Victoria found herself drawn to the bolts of fabric, running her fingers over cottons and calicos she could never afford. The shopkeeper, an older woman with kind eyes, showed her the latest patterns and pointed out which fabrics were most practical for the Texas heat. "See anything you like?" Lucas asked, coming to stand beside her. "It is all lovely, but I do not need new fabric. My dresses are perfectly serviceable. But do you like them, or are they just serviceable?" He picked up a bolt of fabric in a deep rose color that reminded Victoria of sunsets. "This would suit you." "Lucas, I cannot accept such a gift. It would not be proper." "Consider it a work expense, then." "As my housekeeper, you represent my household when we come to town. You should have at least one nice dress." His tone was gentle but firm. "Besides, you have been working hard all week, and I would like to show my appreciation." The shopkeeper watched this exchange with interest. "The gentleman makes a good point, miss. And if you purchase the fabric, I could recommend a seamstress who does excellent work at fair prices." Victoria hesitated, torn between propriety and desire. The fabric was beautiful, and she had not owned anything truly nice since before her parents died. "Just the fabric," she said finally. "I can do my own sewing." "Then we will take enough for a dress," Lucas told the shopkeeper, "and whatever else Miss Sawyer needs for her work." They left the shop with fabric, thread, new needles, and several other supplies Victoria had not realized she needed until the shopkeeper suggested them. Lucas had also purchased a new bridle from the leather goods store next door, and they loaded everything into the wagon, now piled high with supplies. "Are you hungry?" Lucas asked. "There is a decent restaurant here that serves excellent beef stew. We could have lunch before heading back." Victoria had never eaten in a restaurant before. Her family had been comfortable before her parents died, but not wealthy enough for such luxuries, and certainly not after. "Is that appropriate? For an employer and employee? It is a public restaurant and we need to eat." "I see nothing inappropriate about it." He offered his arm. "Unless you would prefer not to." "No, I would like to try it," Victoria admitted. The restaurant was clean and busy, filled with a mix of cowboys, businessmen, and families. The proprietor, a Mexican woman who greeted Lucas by name, led them to a table near the window. The menu was simple beef stew, chicken with rice, or fried catfish with vegetables. They both ordered the stew, and it arrived steaming hot with thick slices of fresh bread. "This is delicious," Victoria said after her first bite. The meat was tender, the vegetables perfectly cooked, the broth rich with flavor. "Maria is the best cook in town. I try to eat here whenever I come to Brownsville." Lucas broke off a piece of bread. "What do you think of the town so far?" "It is livelier than I expected, and more diverse. I noticed several languages being spoken on the street. We are right on the border here. Mexican and Anglo cultures mix pretty freely, at least in town. Out on the ranches, there is sometimes tension, especially with cattle crossing the river in both directions. But generally, people get along well enough." He paused. "Has anyone made you feel unwelcome?" Victoria thought of Caroline Porter's sharp smile. "No one of consequence." Lucas looked at her with understanding. "Caroline tries to make everyone feel small because she is afraid of being small herself. Do not let her get to you. You are worth 10 of her." The casual compliment caught Victoria off guard. "You barely know me." "I know you work hard without complaint. I know you laugh at my terrible jokes and ask thoughtful questions. I know you light up when you talk about gardening and that you make the best cornbread I have ever tasted. That is enough to know you are a good person, Victoria." She did not know what to say to that, so she focused on her stew, feeling a confusing mix of pleasure and embarrassment at his words. They finished lunch and began the journey back to the ranch. The afternoon sun was hot, but a slight breeze made the temperature bearable. Lucas pointed out more landmarks, told her stories about various adventures and misadventures in the area, and asked her what she thought of Brownsville. "I liked it," Victoria said honestly. "It feels alive in a way San Antonio did not. Or perhaps I just see it differently because I am not living under my uncle's roof anymore." "Was it very bad there?" Lucas asked gently. Victoria considered her answer. She had spent the week carefully avoiding details about her life with her uncle, not wanting to seem like she was complaining or seeking pity. But Lucas's genuine concern made her want to be honest. "My uncle was not cruel, exactly. He and my aunt provided food and shelter. But they made it very clear that I was a burden, another mouth to feed in a household that already struggled financially. Every bite I ate, every candle I burned, every piece of firewood that warmed me, they all came with silent reminders of what I cost them. My aunt constantly found fault with my work, no matter how hard I tried, and my uncle's friends. She trailed off, not wanting to detail the unwanted attention she had endured. "Did anyone hurt you?" Lucas's voice had gone hard. "No, not physically. But there were comments, suggestions, hands that lingered too long when passing things at the table. My uncle did nothing to stop it because those men were his business associates. He did say he would find me a husband among them, but none of them wanted to actually marry me. They wanted something quite different." Lucas was quiet for a long moment, his hands tight on the reins. "That must have been frightening." "It was. When my uncle told me he had arranged this position for me, I was so desperate to leave that I would have agreed to almost anything. I expected to find another household where I was unwanted but useful, where I would work hard to justify my existence. I never expected." She gestured vaguely, encompassing the ranch, the wagon, Lucas himself. "Never expected what?" "Kindness," Victoria said simply. "I never expected someone who would ask what I dream about." They rode in comfortable silence for a while, the wagon wheels crunching over the dusty road. Finally, Lucas spoke again. "You are not a burden to your aunt and uncle, Victoria. They should have been honored to help family, and you are certainly not a burden here. You have already made my life significantly better in just 1 week." "How?" Victoria asked, genuinely curious. "The house feels like a home now. I look forward to meals instead of just eating to stay alive. I enjoy our conversations, and I like knowing that someone is there, that I am not alone." He glanced at her. "Is that strange?" "No, I think I understand what you mean." And she did. Despite her initial wariness, she had found herself relaxing into the rhythms of the household, enjoying the simple pleasure of cooking for someone who appreciated it, of maintaining a home that felt peaceful instead of tense. She looked forward to their conversations, to Lucas's questions and observations, to the way he seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. When they arrived back at the ranch, Miguel emerged from the bunkhouse to help unload the wagon. He was a man of about 35 with weathered features and a kind smile. Lucas introduced them properly, and Miguel greeted Victoria with polite respect. "Señor, Lucas tells me you are an excellent cook, Miss Sawyer. The meals have been much improved this week." "Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. Lucas mentioned that you sometimes eat at the house. You are always welcome." "You are very kind. My cooking, it is terrible. Beans and tortillas, that is all I manage." He laughed good-naturedly. "My wife, she will be very happy when she arrives. She is tired of my complaints about my own cooking." They carried the supplies inside, and Victoria spent the rest of the afternoon organizing the kitchen and pantry, pleased to have a well-stocked workplace. That evening, she made chicken with vegetables and rice, using some of the supplies they had purchased in town. Lucas praised every bite, and they fell into their now familiar pattern of washing dishes together while discussing the day. "What did you think of your first week here?" Lucas asked as Victoria washed the last pot. "Has it been what you expected?" "Not at all, but in the best possible way." Victoria rinsed the pot and handed it to him. "I feel more settled here in 1 week than I did in 2 years at my uncle's house. Does that mean you will stay past the trial month?" Victoria realized she had already made her decision, probably somewhere around the 3rd or 4th day, though she had not consciously acknowledged it until now. "Yes, I would like to stay, if you are satisfied with my work." "More than satisfied. I am grateful you are here, Victoria." Lucas set down the dried pot and turned to face her fully. "I want you to know that you are safe here. I know you have dealt with men who made you uncomfortable, and I want you to understand that will not happen on my land. You have my word on that." The sincerity in his voice moved her deeply. "Thank you, Lucas. That means more than you know." The second week passed much like the first, falling into comfortable routines. Victoria spent her mornings on household tasks and her afternoons working on her garden. Lucas had built a sturdy fence around the plot, and she had begun preparing the soil, working in compost and planning her plantings. September was a good time in South Texas to plant fall and winter crops, and she had purchased seeds for lettuce, cabbage, carrots, and turnips in town. Lucas often joined her in the garden during the late afternoon, after his ranch work was done. He claimed he wanted to learn about gardening, but Victoria suspected he simply enjoyed the companionship. They worked side by side, Victoria explaining techniques while Lucas asked endless questions. He was a quick learner, and his presence made the work lighter. "My mother would have liked you," Victoria said one afternoon as they planted carrot seeds in carefully spaced rows. "She always said the best gardeners were the ones who asked questions and really listened to the answers." "Tell me about her," Lucas said. "What was she like?" Victoria sat back on her heels, remembering. "She was gentle and patient, but strong too. She had to be, managing a household and helping my father with his work. He was a clerk for a shipping company, always busy with accounts and manifests. Mother ran everything at home, but she never made it seem like work. Everything she did, from cooking to cleaning to gardening, she did with joy. She taught me that taking care of a home was not drudgery but an art form. She sounds like a remarkable woman." She was. "When she and my father got the fever, she fought so hard to stay alive. Not for herself, I think, but for me. She knew what would happen to me if they both died, knew I would be at the mercy of relatives. She held on for 3 weeks, far longer than the doctor expected. But in the end, the fever was too much." Lucas reached over and covered her hand with his, a gesture of comfort that felt natural rather than presumptuous. "I am sorry you lost them both. That must have been devastating." "It was. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath my feet. One day I was a daughter in a loving home. The next I was an orphan being passed from relative to relative like an unwanted package." She turned her hand over so their palms touched. "But perhaps that is why I appreciate this place so much. You have given me what I thought I had lost forever, a home." They stayed like that for a long moment, hands joined, the late afternoon sun slanting across the garden. Then Lucas squeezed her hand gently and released it, returning to planting seeds. But something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of a connection that went deeper than employer and employee. Sunday arrived with her first full day off, and Victoria woke unsure what to do with unstructured time. She had never had a full day of rest before. Even Sundays at her uncle's house had been filled with extra chores. She dressed and went to the kitchen, intending to at least prepare breakfast, but found Lucas already there, working on a pot of coffee. "What are you doing?" Victoria asked. "I can make breakfast." "It is your day off," Lucas said firmly. "I am perfectly capable of making eggs and bacon. You go sit on the porch and relax." "But I do not know how to relax," Victoria protested, only half joking. Lucas laughed. "Then it is past time you learned. Go on out of my kitchen." Feeling strange about not working, Victoria went to the porch and settled into one of the wooden chairs there. The morning was still cool, the sun just starting to warm the air. She could hear chickens clucking from the coop Lucas kept, the distant lowing of cattle, and the morning songs of birds in the cottonwood trees. It was peaceful in a way that made her chest ache with something she could not quite name. Lucas emerged with 2 plates of eggs and bacon, surprisingly well cooked, and 2 cups of coffee. They ate together on the porch, watching the sun climb higher in the sky. "What do people do on their day off?" Victoria asked. "I have never really had one before." "Whatever they want." "Raid, rest, visit friends, go for a ride. What sounds good to you, honestly? Just sitting here feels luxurious." "Then sit we shall." Lucas settled back in his chair. "Though if you wanted to go for a ride later, I could show you more of the ranch. Or if you prefer, you could read. You are welcome to any of the books in the house." They spent the morning in companionable silence, each reading. Lucas had an impressive library for a rancher, including several volumes of poetry that surprised Victoria. She found herself drawn to a collection of Walt Whitman's poems, losing herself in the expansive language. "You like Whitman?" Lucas asked, noticing her selection. "I do, though my uncle considered him scandalous. Too much passion, too much bodily existence." "Your uncle sounds like he was afraid of life." "I think he was. He wanted everything controlled and proper, with no room for joy or spontaneity." She looked up from the book. "Did you really mean it when you said I could borrow any of your books? Of course. I have read them all at least twice. I would be happy to have someone to discuss them with." They ended up spending much of the afternoon talking about books and poetry, discovering shared loves and debating differing interpretations. It was the kind of conversation Victoria had dreamed of having but never thought she would. 2 people meeting as intellectual equals, ideas flowing freely. She found herself speaking with an animation she rarely showed, gesturing as she defended her reading of a particular poem. "You are passionate about literature," Lucas observed, his eyes bright with interest. "I suppose I am. I have always loved reading, but I rarely had anyone to discuss books with. My parents were educated but not literary, and after they died, well, my relatives thought reading was a waste of time that could be better spent working." "It is not a waste of time. Books are how we learn to see the world through other eyes, how we exercise our imaginations and empathy. A person who reads is never truly alone." "Is that why you have so many books? Because you were lonely?" Lucas considered this. "Partly, but also because I genuinely enjoy reading. My father thought it was foolish that a rancher did not need books, just strong hands and good sense. But my mother encouraged it. She came from an educated family back east and brought boxes of books with her when she married my father. After she died, reading was how I stayed connected to her." "How old were you when she passed?" 15. "She got pneumonia one winter and it took her quickly. My father never recovered from losing her. He worked himself into an early grave, I think. Died of a heart attack when I was 24. "So we are both orphans," Victoria said softly. "Yes. Though I was older when I lost my parents and I had the ranch to hold on to. You lost everything." "Not everything. I had my memories, and I had hope, even when it seemed foolish to hope." "What did you hope for?" Victoria set down her book, looking out at the land stretching toward the horizon. "I hoped that somewhere there was a place I could belong. A place where I would not have to apologize for existing, where I could breathe freely and maybe even be happy. I hoped for exactly this, actually a home, meaningful work, and someone who saw me as a person rather than a burden or an object. "You have that here," Lucas said. "For as long as you want it." Their eyes met, and Victoria saw something in his expression that made her heart beat faster. It was more than kindness, more than appreciation for a good housekeeper. It was the way a man looked at a woman he was beginning to care for deeply. The realization thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. The weeks flowed into each other, September giving way to October. Victoria's garden flourished, green shoots pushing up through the soil in neat rows. The house ran smoothly. Meals appeared regularly, and the household supplies were managed with practical efficiency. But more than the work, it was the relationship between Victoria and Lucas that grew and deepened. They fell into the habit of spending their evenings together, sometimes reading in companionable silence, sometimes talking late into the night. Lucas continued to ask his questions, drawing out Victoria's thoughts and opinions on everything from literature to politics to religion. In turn, she learned more about him, his dreams for the ranch, his concerns about drought and cattle prices, his complicated feelings about Texas in the aftermath of the Civil War and Reconstruction. "My father fought for the Confederacy," Lucas told her one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "But he owned no slaves and had no particular love for the institution. He fought because Texas was his home, and he felt loyal to it. I was too young to fight, which I am grateful for now. I could not have borne killing men over politics and economics." "Do you think the Union was right to fight the war?" Victoria asked. "I think slavery was evil and needed to end. But I also think war is a brutal way to solve problems, and we are still dealing with the aftermath. Brownsville changed hands 6 times during the war, sometimes Union, sometimes Confederate. People here are still divided about it, still nursing grudges." He paused. "What do your family believe?" "My father was anti-slavery, but also anti-war. He thought there should have been a peaceful solution, though he never could articulate what that would look like. After the war started, he kept his opinions quiet because it was not safe to speak against the Confederacy in Texas. I think the constant vigilance, the need to always guard his words, wore him down. It wore a lot of people down. The war ended 13 years ago, but in some ways, we are still fighting it." These conversations revealed Lucas to be thoughtful and progressive in his views, concerned with justice and fairness in a way that impressed Victoria. He treated Miguel with genuine respect, paid him fairly, and spoke Spanish with him regularly. He dealt honestly with the Mexican ranchers whose land bordered his, and he was known in Brownsville as a fair man who kept his word. One afternoon in late October, Victoria was working in the garden when she heard horses approaching. She looked up to see Lucas riding in with Miguel and 3 men she did not recognize. They were driving about 20 head of cattle, dusty and tired looking. Lucas dismounted and walked over to her, removing his hat. "Victoria, these men are going to stay for supper. We bought cattle from their ranch, and it is too far for them to ride home tonight. Miguel will put them up in the bunkhouse, but I promised them a good meal. Is that manageable?" "Of course." "How many total?" 6, including Miguel and me. "And they will not expect anything fancy. Cowboys are just grateful for hot food." Victoria had been cooking for 2, occasionally 3 when Miguel joined them. 6 was more challenging, but she had good supplies and enough time to prepare. "I can manage. Give me 2 hours." She worked quickly, preparing a large pot of beef stew with vegetables from her garden, baking 2 pans of cornbread, and making dried apple pie from supplies she had preserved. It was simple fare but hearty and filling. She set the large table, putting out every plate and bowl the household owned, and made a huge pot of coffee. When the men came in, dusty and hungry, they greeted her with polite respect, removing their hats and cleaning up at the basin outside before entering. Lucas introduced them Sam, John, and Robert, brothers who ran a ranch about 30 miles to the north. The meal was boisterous, the men eating with obvious appreciation and complimenting Victoria's cooking until she felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. Lucas watched with pride, clearly pleased that his household could provide such hospitality. "You have a good situation here, Lucas," Sam said, the oldest of the brothers. "Fine ranch, good cattle, and excellent cooking. What more could a man want?" "Not much," Lucas agreed, his eyes finding Victoria's across the table. "I have been fortunate." After the meal, the men retired to the bunkhouse while Victoria began cleaning up. She was tired from the extra work but satisfied with how it had gone. She was washing dishes when Lucas appeared beside her. "Thank you for managing that so well," he said, picking up a towel. "You made it look effortless." "It was not effortless, but I did not mind. It felt good to provide hospitality, to see people enjoying food I prepared." "You are a natural at it. My mother would have approved." He dried a plate carefully. "The men were impressed. Sam asked me if you were married." Victoria felt her heart skip. "What did you tell him?" "That you were not married, but that you were also not available." Lucas set down the plate and turned to face her. "Victoria, I need to tell you something, and I hope it will not make things awkward between us." She set down the dish she was washing, drying her hands on her apron. "What is it?" "I have come to care for you deeply over these past 2 months. More than an employer should care for his housekeeper, more than friends care for each other." He took a breath. "I have fallen in love with you, Victoria, and I am asking whether there is any chance you might feel the same way about me." Victoria's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. She had known her own feelings for weeks now, had tried to suppress them because she feared they were inappropriate, one-sided, or dangerous to the stability she had found. But hearing Lucas speak the words she had barely admitted to herself released something inside her. "I do feel the same way," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have for some time, but I did not think I should say anything. You are my employer, and I did not want to presume or to make you uncomfortable." "You could never make me uncomfortable." Lucas reached out and took her hand. "Victoria, I know the circumstances of how you came here were not romantic, but these past 2 months have been the happiest of my life. You have made this house a home, yes, but more than that, you have made me remember what it feels like to truly connect with another person. I love talking with you, working with you, being near you. I love your intelligence and your kindness and your strength. I love the way you laugh and the way you think about things. I love everything about you." Tears pricked Victoria's eyes. "I love you too, Lucas. I was so afraid when I came here, expecting the worst, but you showed me kindness and respect from the very first moment. You asked me about my dreams instead of just giving me orders. You made me feel valued and seen. How could I not fall in love with you?" Lucas raised her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "May I court you properly, Victoria? I know we live in the same house, which complicates things, but I want to do this right. I want to give you time to be sure of your feelings, to know that you have choices. If you decide I am not the right man for you, I will respect that and help you find another situation. But if you think you might want a future with me, I would like to court you with the intention of marriage." "I would like that very much," Victoria said, her voice trembling with emotion, "though I am already sure of my feelings. I love you, Lucas Sterling, and I cannot imagine a future without you in it." He pulled her gently into his arms, holding her close. Victoria rested her head against his chest, hearing the strong beat of his heart, feeling the warmth of his embrace. It was the safest she had ever felt. "I will speak to the pastor in town," Lucas said. "Make sure we do this properly, and I want to buy you a ring, something worthy of you. I do not need an expensive ring, I just need you. You shall have both." He pulled back slightly to look at her face. "May I kiss you?" "Yes," Victoria breathed. His kiss was gentle and reverent, a promise more than a passion. When they parted, both were smiling. The next weeks were a time of joy tempered with propriety. Lucas spoke to the pastor in Brownsville, explaining the situation and his intentions. The pastor agreed to provide guidance and suggested that Lucas arrange for a chaperone when appropriate, given that they lived under the same roof. Lucas asked Mrs. Patterson, the mercantile owner's wife, if she would be willing to serve in that capacity, and the kind woman agreed enthusiastically. News of the courtship spread through Brownsville quickly, as such news always did in small towns. Most people reacted with pleasure, happy to see Lucas settling down with a nice young woman. Caroline Porter, however, made her displeasure known, making snide comments about housekeepers who had ideas above their station. Victoria heard about this from Mrs. Patterson during one of her visits to the ranch. "Do not pay Caroline Porter any mind," the older woman said firmly. "She is jealous because she gave up a good man for foolish reasons, and now she has to watch him find happiness with someone better suited to him. You are perfect for Lucas, dear. Anyone with eyes can see how much you love each other." And they did love each other, deeply and obviously. Lucas courted Victoria with old-fashioned courtesy, bringing her wildflowers from his rides, reading poetry to her in the evenings, and teaching her to ride so they could explore the ranch together. He asked her opinion on ranch decisions, discussing his plans and listening to her suggestions. He bought her books and fabric for new dresses and seeds for her garden. In return, Victoria cared for him with tenderness, making his favorite meals, mending his clothes with careful stitches, and listening to his concerns and dreams. They talked for hours, discovering more shared interests and values. They debated books and politics, shared memories of their pasts, and made plans for their future. In December, Lucas proposed formally, presenting Victoria with a gold ring set with a small but perfect diamond. They were in her garden, where despite the winter season, cold hardy vegetables still grew. "Victoria Sawyer, you have made me the happiest man alive," Lucas said, kneeling among the carrots and cabbages. "Will you marry me and share my life?" "Yes," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They set the wedding for early February, giving time for Lucas's brother to travel from California and for Victoria to prepare properly. She made her own wedding dress from the rose-colored fabric Lucas had bought her in Brownsville, sewing by lamplight in the evenings, and creating something beautiful and unique. Mrs. Patterson and several other women from town took Victoria under their collective wing, teaching her about marriage and helping with wedding preparations. Victoria found herself part of a community for the first time since her parents died, welcomed and valued not as a poor relation, but as Lucas Sterling's bride-to-be. Miguel's wife, Rosa, arrived from Mexico in January, and Victoria helped her settle into the bunkhouse, which Miguel had fixed up in preparation. Rosa was a warm, friendly woman who spoke limited English, but Victoria's basic Spanish and Rosa's willingness to teach created quick friendship. Rosa insisted on helping with wedding preparations, bringing Mexican traditions to blend with Anglo customs. Lucas's brother, David, arrived 2 weeks before the wedding, and Victoria liked him immediately. He was lighter in temperament than Lucas, more gregarious and less serious, but the love between the brothers was evident. David approved heartily of the match, telling Victoria privately that he had never seen his brother so happy. Lucas has always been the responsible one, David said. Taking care of the ranch, taking care of me, taking care of everyone but himself. You take care of him, Victoria, that is all I ask. I will, she promised. He takes care of me too, we take care of each other. The wedding took place on a mild February afternoon in the small church in Brownsville. Victoria wore her rose-colored dress and carried wildflowers that Lucas had picked that morning. Lucas wore a new suit and looked nervous and happy in equal measure. The church was full of people, ranchers and townspeople who had come to know and respect Lucas, and new friends Victoria had made during her time in Brownsville. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. When Lucas said his vows, promising to love and cherish Victoria all the days of his life, his voice shook with emotion. Victoria's own vows were steady, her love giving her strength and certainty. I promise to love you in joy and in sorrow, in plenty and in want, in health and in sickness, she said, looking into his eyes. You gave me a home when I had none, hope when I had lost it, and love when I thought I was unworthy. I will spend my life proving worthy of the gift you have given me. You do not need to prove anything, Lucas said, his voice rough. You are already everything I could ever want. When the pastor pronounced them married, Lucas kissed her with gentle passion, and the congregation applauded. They walked down the aisle hand in hand, beaming at their friends and family. The reception was held at the restaurant where they had eaten lunch months before, Maria providing a feast of both Anglo and Mexican dishes. There was music and dancing, toasts and laughter. Caroline Porter had not attended, which was a relief to everyone. Sam and his brothers had come, along with many other ranchers and their families. Miguel and Rosa danced together, and David charmed every unmarried woman in attendance. As the sun set, Lucas and Victoria left the reception and drove home to the ranch in the wagon, now festooned with ribbons and flowers courtesy of the town ladies. The house awaited them, warm and welcoming in the gathering darkness. Lucas carried Victoria over the threshold, a tradition he insisted on despite her laughing protests. He set her down gently in the main room, then cupped her face in his hands. "Welcome home, Mrs. Sterling," he said softly. "I have been home since the day I arrived," Victoria replied. "But being your wife makes it even sweeter." They moved into Lucas's bedroom together, now their shared space. Victoria had already moved her things there earlier in the week, blending her few possessions with his. The room felt like theirs now, a space they would share for the rest of their lives. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, a deepening of the love they had built over months of friendship and courtship. Lucas was patient and gentle, concerned always with Victoria's comfort and pleasure. She had been nervous, but his love and care made everything feel natural and right. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Victoria's head on Lucas's chest, his arms wrapped around her. "What are you thinking?" Lucas asked, his voice drowsy and content. "That I am the luckiest woman alive, that I love you more than words can express. That I am grateful for every moment that led me here to you." "I am the lucky one," Lucas insisted. "You took a chance on a rancher you had never met, traveled to an unfamiliar place, and gave me the greatest gift possible, your love and your life. We are both lucky then." Victoria tilted her head to kiss his jaw. "Tell me what you dream about now, Lucas." "Now, I dream about our life together. Children running through this house, your garden growing bigger every year, growing old together and watching the ranch thrive. I dream about loving you for the next 50 years and having it still not be enough time." "That sounds like a perfect dream." Victoria snuggled closer. "Though I might add a few more books to that vision and maybe some horses for those future children." Lucas laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. "Books and horses. I can work with that." They drifted to sleep in each other's arms, secure in their love and their future. The first years of their marriage were busy and happy. The ranch prospered under Lucas's careful management and Victoria's practical support. She took over the household accounts, proving to have a head for numbers that helped them maximize profits and minimize waste. Her garden expanded each year, providing fresh vegetables that they ate, preserved, and sold in town. She also started keeping chickens more extensively, selling eggs to supplement the ranch income. Miguel and Rosa became close friends as well as employees. Rosa taught Victoria more advanced Mexican cooking, and Victoria helped Rosa improve her English. The two women worked together during busy seasons, sharing the labor and the companionship. In the autumn of 1879, Victoria realized she was pregnant. She told Lucas one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, a ritual they had maintained throughout their marriage. "I have news," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." Lucas's face transformed with joy and wonder. "Truly." "Victoria, are you certain?" "As certain as I can be. I spoke with Mrs. Patterson, and she confirmed what I suspected. We will have a child sometime in late spring." Lucas pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as though she might break. "This is the happiest day of my life." "Well, second happiest. Our wedding day still holds that honor." "I am so happy, Lucas, and a little frightened. What if I am not a good mother? You will be an excellent mother. You are caring and patient and wise. Our child will be blessed to have you." He kissed her forehead. "We will face this together, Victoria, just like everything else." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Victoria tired more easily as her belly grew. Lucas fussed over her constantly, trying to prevent her from working too hard. Victoria found his concern endearing if occasionally excessive. "I am pregnant, not ill," she told him repeatedly. "I can still cook and clean. I just cannot do heavy lifting." "Then I will do the heavy lifting," Lucas said firmly. "You take care of yourself and our baby." Their son was born on a warm May morning in 1880. The birth was attended by Mrs. Patterson, who had assisted at many births in the area, and Rosa, who held Victoria's hand and spoke soothing words in Spanish. Lucas waited outside, pacing anxiously until Mrs. Patterson emerged to tell him he had a healthy son. They named him Thomas William Sterling, after both grandfathers. Tommy was a robust baby with Lucas's blue eyes and Victoria's dark hair. Lucas was besotted from the first moment, holding his son with tender amazement. "He is perfect," Lucas said, his voice thick with emotion. "Victoria, you are amazing. Look what you have done." "We made him together," Victoria said, exhausted but happy. "He is part of both of us." Tommy's arrival brought new joy and new challenges to the household. Babies required constant attention, and Victoria found herself exhausted in ways she had not anticipated. But Lucas was an involved father, walking the floor with Tommy when he cried at night, changing nappies without complaint, and spending every spare moment playing with his son. When Tommy was 6 months old, David visited from California, bringing his new wife, a bright, funny woman named Margaret. The brothers' reunion was joyful, and Margaret and Victoria became fast friends. David and Margaret stayed for 2 weeks, and before they left, Margaret whispered to Victoria that she thought she might be pregnant too. "You must write and tell me everything," Victoria insisted. "And you must visit again after the baby is born. Cousins should know each other." The years continued to pass, marked by the rhythms of ranch life and family milestones. Tommy grew into a sturdy toddler, then an active little boy who followed his father everywhere. In 1882, Victoria gave birth to a daughter, Emma Rose, who had her mother's eyes and her father's smile. Lucas doted on his daughter, proving that his capacity for love was infinite. The ranch continued to prosper. Lucas expanded his herd and his land, buying adjacent parcels from retiring ranchers. Victoria's garden became famous in the area, and she started selling produce at the Brownsville market on Saturdays, earning her own money that she saved and invested wisely. In 1884, David and Margaret moved back to Texas, settling on a small ranch about 20 miles from Lucas and Victoria. The brothers became partners in some ventures, sharing equipment and labor during busy seasons. The cousins Tommy, Emma, and David's children, Sarah and little David, grew up together, more like siblings than cousins. Miguel and Rosa remained part of the family, though Miguel was now the foreman rather than just a ranch hand. Lucas had hired several other workers as the ranch grew, and Miguel managed them with fairness and skill. Rosa helped Victoria with the house and the children, and her cooking remained legendary. Victoria maintained her love of reading and passed it on to her children. She taught both Tommy and Emma to read before they were 5, and the household's library continued to grow. Lucas still brought her books from his trips to town, and they still spent evenings reading together, now with children curled up beside them. One evening in 1886, 8 years after their wedding, Victoria and Lucas sat on the porch after putting the children to bed. It was their familiar ritual, watching the sun set over the land they loved. "You remember the day we met?" Lucas asked, holding Victoria's hand. "When you stepped off that stagecoach expecting orders." "I remember. I was so nervous, so certain I knew what was coming. And then you asked me what I dreamed about and everything changed." "What do you dream about now?" Lucas asked, echoing that first question. Victoria looked out at the ranch, the house behind them full of children and love, the garden thriving even in the summer heat, the cattle grazing peacefully in the distance. She thought about the life they had built together, brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. "I do not dream anymore," she said, "because I am living the dream. Everything I could possibly want is right here: a home, a family, meaningful work, and you. Always you, Lucas. You made all of this possible by seeing me as a person worthy of dreams instead of just a servant worthy of orders. You made it possible by having the courage to dream in the first place and by choosing to love me back." Lucas raised her hand to his lips. "I love you, Victoria Sterling, more today than yesterday, less than tomorrow. I love you too, now and always." They sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the Texas sky in shades of gold and rose. Inside the house, their children slept safely. Around them, the ranch thrived. And in the years to come, there would be more joy, more children. Tommy eventually taking over the ranch with his father's guidance. Emma becoming a teacher in Brownsville, and using her inheritance to start a school that welcomed all children regardless of background. David's family continuing to grow and prosper nearby. There would be challenges too: droughts and harsh winters, cattle diseases and market fluctuations, the normal struggles of life in the Texas borderlands. But Victoria and Lucas would face everything together, their love deepening with each passing year. They would grow old on the ranch where they had fallen in love, surrounded by children and grandchildren, still asking each other questions, still sharing dreams. On their 50th wedding anniversary in 1928, Victoria would be 72 and Lucas 79. They would celebrate surrounded by 3 children, 12 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. People would ask them the secret to their long and happy marriage, and Lucas would always give the same answer. "I asked her what she dreamed about instead of what she could do for me. And then I spent the rest of my life making sure those dreams came true." And Victoria would add, her hand in his just as it had been for 50 years. He taught me that I was worthy of dreams. That love is not about orders and obligations, but about seeing each other truly and choosing each other every day. That is what we have done, chosen each other, over and over, for 50 years, and I would choose him for 50 more if we had the time. They would not have 50 more years, but they would have a few precious ones still. Lucas would pass peacefully in his sleep in 1931, at the age of 82, with Victoria holding his hand. She would follow him just 18 months later, her heart finally giving out at 74. They would be buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch. Beneath a stone that read, "Lucas and Victoria Sterling," they asked each other about dreams and built them together. But all of that was still in the future. On this warm evening in 1886, they were still young enough to feel immortal, still building their life together, still deeply in love. The children were healthy, the ranch was thriving, and they had each other. It was enough. It was everything. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Lucas stood and offered Victoria his hand. "Shall we go inside, my love?" In a moment. Victoria stood and wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her head on his chest. "I just want to stand here with you a little longer, being grateful." Lucas held her close, his chin resting on top of her head. "Grateful for what? For you. For this life. For the day you asked me what I dreamed about instead of giving me orders. For every moment that brought us here." She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the first stars. "Thank you, Lucas. For everything. Thank you, Victoria, for choosing to stay, for choosing to love me, for making every dream I ever had come true." He kissed her softly, a kiss that held 8 years of love and the promise of all the years to come. "Now and always." "Now and always," Victoria agreed. They walked into the house hand in hand, closing the door on the Texas night. Inside, their home waited, full of love, full of life, full of dreams that had become reality because a cowboy had asked questions instead of giving orders, and a woman had found the courage to answer honestly. It was a simple beginning that had grown into something extraordinary. A love story written in the daily acts of care and commitment, in conversations on front porches, in gardens planted and children raised, in 50 years of choosing each other. And on that warm evening in 1886, with their whole future still ahead of them, Victoria and Lucas Sterling settled in for the night, secure in their love and grateful for every moment that had brought them together. The Wild West was changing around them, becoming more civilized with each passing year, but their love remained wild and true, a force of nature that would last long after the frontier had faded into history. Their story would be told by their descendants for generations, a testament to the power of kindness, the importance of seeing others truly, and the transformative nature of love. But on this night, they were not thinking about legacy or history. They were simply two people who loved each other, living their dream together, one precious day at a time.